Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy. This is your study guide for the imperfect exam that's coming up later this week. And I'm going to skip around a little bit because this PDF is not in the same order as the packet that's being given to you. So I'm going to go over how to fill these in. Would like you to attempt to do it on your own first, but this is to kind of check and make sure that you're on the right track. So the first part, top part, you don't need to worry about with vocabulary. You're not going to be tested on any vocabulary. This is just grammar, the imperfect tense. So give the imperfect of the following verbs. Jugar is a regular AR verb. It would be jugaba, jugabas, jugaba, jugábamos, and jugaban. No need to worry about the vosotros form. Permitir is a regular IR verb, and remember, ER and IR verbs share the same endings in the imperfect. Those endings would be permitía, permitías, permitía, permitíamos, and permitían. Ser is irregular in the imperfect. Era, eras, era, éramos, and eran. And finally, ir is also irregular in the imperfect. Those conjugations are iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, and iban. To tell to whom or for whom an action is done, we use indirect object pronouns. These came up, I don't know for third period, but definitely for eighth period, if I'm not mistaken. We had said that those indirect object pronouns are me, te, le, nos, and les. One more time, me, te, le, nos, and les. Indirect object pronouns indicate the recipient, right? To whom or for whom an action is done. I don't think that's explicitly in the exam, though, to be honest with you. The exam is mainly focused on the imperfect. All right, the next page in your packet is a paragraph. Let's see if we can find that together. Looks like it's toward the bottom here. There we are. So in this paragraph, Amalia is describing a wonderful family gathering when she was a child. So because she's talking about a childhood perspective, family gatherings that used to happen when she was little, most all of these verbs are going to be in the imperfect. Okay, so fill in the blank with the correct form of the verb that makes sense in the imperfect. I'll go over the answers with you now. So I'll pause here just a moment if you want to try this on your own. Pick the adjective, or excuse me, the verb that makes sense, and then conjugate it in the imperfect, like the example here. Let's go ahead and do this together. Check your answers. Cuando yo era niña, when I was a little girl, mis parientes, my relatives, se reunían. Se reunían. Reflexive verb, so we need that reflexive pronoun se at the beginning. Mi abuela preparaba, used to make a lot of food. Y mi madre y mis tías la ayudaban. Ayudaban, used to help her. La refers to my grandmother. Yo jugaba con mis primos. I used to play with my cousins. Todos nosotros nos llevábamos. Reflexive verb, reflexive pronoun. Nos llevábamos. We got along really well. Llevarse is to get along. And then divertirse, another reflexive verb, is to have fun. Same subject. Nos divertíamos. We would have a good time. We would enjoy each other is literally what it means. Nos divertíamos mucho. Nos llevábamos. Nos divertíamos. Again, your subject is nosotros, both of these being reflexive verbs. Nosotros almorzábamos. Almorzábamos juntos. We'd have lunch together. Contábamos chistes. We'd tell jokes. Y nos reíamos. Nos reíamos tanto. Mi primo Raúl siempre traía. T-R-A-I-A. Traía. If you're thinking jugar, well, jugar is to play, but it's not to play music, right? It's to play with one another, or to play a sport, or to play a card game. Not in this case to play music. Tocar would be the verb to play music. Now, here we would use the verb tocar because we're talking about him playing the guitar very well. Él tocaba muy bien y nos gustaba escucharlo. We liked to listen to him. Gustar should be in the third person singular. Gustaba. This isn't a reflexive verb. We know it's not reflexive because it doesn't end in se. So the subject of gustar isn't us liking him. It's liking him, if that makes sense. Gustar is conjugated according to what's being liked. In this case, the playing of the guitar, right? Which is singular, third person singular. Gustar is an irregular verb in that it doesn't conjugate according to your subject, right? Gustar conjugates according to what's being liked, whether what's being liked is singular, gustaba, or plural, gustaban. Only two versions of gustar. Just like in the present, right? Gusta and gustan that you learned in Spanish 1. Same applies here in the imperfect. Nosotros cantábamos nuestras canciones favoritas, favorite songs, our favorite songs. Todos en la familia, everybody in the family, is plural, todos. Se quedaban, stayed at home. Se quedaban en casa. Y después regresaban a casa, returned home tired, but very happy. This is a great practice of the imperfect, great practice of reflexive verbs, the use of an indirect object pronoun here, great practice. Maybe you didn't get them all correct, perfect, but a perfect effort is what we're looking for. All right, next page, grammar uses of the imperfect. Perfect tense is used to talk about repeated actions in the past. We filled out a T-chart with these uses. Repeated actions in the past, when you're talking about, for example, your childhood, like that example paragraph, de niño or de niña. Adverbs of frequency, to say how often you used to do something. Normalmente, usualmente, típicamente, generalmente. And then age, to talk about how old you were when something happened. Time, to express time in the past. And weather. Age, time, and weather. Anytime we refer to those three concepts, and I think that's probably what they want you to put here. Age, time, and weather. Talking about how old something was or how old you were, what time it was in the past, and what the weather was like in the past. Age, time, and weather, in addition to repeated actions in the past and those context clues. The adverbs of frequency, always, never, right? Siempre, nunca, a veces, muchas veces, pocas veces. Those adverbs of frequency as well would be clues for the imperfect. Reflexive pronouns is the idea that an action is done to or oneself. These are called reflexive actions. Reflexive pronouns used with reflexive verbs are me, te, se, nos, and se. Reflexive verbs would include, well, we looked at a lot of them in the previous activity. Llevarse, quedarse, divertirse, reírse. You could even talk about the verbs that you learned in Spanish 1, or 2 rather. Despertarse, levantarse, ducharse, cepillarse los dientes, etc. All right, next paper. I'm not going to, for the sake of not making this video too long, I'm going to abbreviate this and just give you the first few. Read the description below about something that happened in the past. I for imperfect, P for preterite. I'll actually really quickly give you all the correct answers. Imperfect, whether, hacía. Preterite, the verb to decide is a singular action, completed action, decidimos. Cuentan should be contaban, imperfect, continuous action. And then cuando is a catalyst for the preterite to say completed action that happened within this background setting. Correct answer would be encontramos, preterite. Puso, preterite, completed action. Reunimos, preterite, completed action. Había, imperfect, setting the stage or providing background setting. Charlaban, imperfect, again providing background setting. Jugaban, no stem change. Jugaban, imperfect, background setting. We can use the imperfect to tell a story, if you will, providing the backdrop. Cuando is a catalyst, a precursor to shifting to the preterite, to a completed action. This would be llegamos, preterite. Se divertían, imperfect, background setting. Cuando vinieron, when the clouds came. I know that's an expression of weather. Those of you that are really locked in are like, why preterite here if we're talking about weather? But again, cuando. Anytime we see cuando, the verb that comes right thereafter is going to always be preterite because it's referring to completed action. To begin to rain is a completed action. Empezó, preterite. Toda la gente corrió, corrio, preterite. Again, we're talking about a series of completed actions. La gente no se rió, rio. I think this wants to be preterite, if I'm not mistaken. Again, all completed actions here. Los jóvenes ya no jugaron, preterite, completed action. Empezaron, preterite, completed action. Nos despedimos, preterite, completed action. And terminó, preterite, completed action. How do we know that all this is in the preterite? Again, cuando being the catalyst in a series of, this isn't really setting the stage, if you will. This is talking about everything that happened after it began to rain, right? When the weather changed. All right, next page is at the top here. Imperfect is used, and I guess maybe kind of doing this out of order a little bit, to describe people, places, and situations in the past, again, to provide that background setting. For part A, you're underlining all the verbs used in the imperfect to describe the situation. Era, íbamos, tenían, era, había, hacía, and gustaba. Talking about always used to go to the lake. There you can see that context clue, always. Having a home, summer home that was close to the lake. Forgive me if I missed estaba. Should have included that. The lake was very large and pretty. Era, describing what something was like in the past. There were trees. Había árboles. Again, describing a place. Hacía mucho calor. There's a description of weather. Nonetheless, describing a place or situation. Nos gustaba nadar. We like to swim there. Describing people. Era más fresco. Describing the weather of the situation. Reading this paragraph. Cierto, falso. True or false. If it's false, I would encourage you to correct it to make it true. La familia siempre iba al océano durante el verano? No. Al lago would make that correct for number one. Number two, los tíos tenían una casa de verano cerca del lago. This is correct. According to that second sentence, era un lago grande con árboles alrededor. Correct. Third and fourth sentence, hacía mucho calor en el verano. Yes. That last sentence, that makes it correct. And And then no podían nadar is falso. Sí podían. Nos gustaba nadar. Les gustaba nadar. So this would be falso. And say sí podían. All right, and the last page at the very back is to circle the imperfect and underline the preterite. Imperfect being used to provide background setting. Preterite being used to talk about a completed action. Imperfect provides the background. Preterite provides the individual completed actions. And cuando is going to be your divider there. Usually what comes prior to cuando would be the imperfect, providing the background. And then what comes after cuando is the preterite, although sometimes you can see they kind of switch it, like in number 3, number 6, number 8, number 10. Correct answers: imperfect, charlamos, preterite, empezó, preterite, llegaron, imperfect, contaba. And it switches because they begin with cuando, whereas in these other two examples, they end the sentence with cuando. Cuando is always going to be directly followed by the preterite, no matter where it's placed in the sentence. Number 4, comía, imperfect, dieron, preterite. Number 5, jugaba, imperfect, entró, preterite. Number 6, llegó, preterite, bebían, imperfect. Number 7, bailaban, imperfect, terminó, preterite. Number 8, preterite, se fueron, escribía, imperfect. Number 9, sacabas, imperfect, volvieron, preterite. And number 10, preterite, nos reuníamos, and llamabas, imperfect. So you guys are going to submit this in Canvas to demonstrate that you've studied for your exam, which will take place later on this week.